brining is a technique which is very, very simple, very effective, and I think that everybody should be doing this in their kitchen every day, not just on special occasions when you're doing a turkey for Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever. So we're going to be doing simple brining today to show you how amazing it is. And we're going to be brining chicken breast and we're going to be brining pork ribs. And brining is something that really you should do to any kind of white meat that enters your kitchen. So any chicken, white fish, seafood, pork, all those kinds of things. Does not lend itself particularly well to red meat, with some exceptions which I will go through.
Oh.
So we're going to do a 6% brine today, which literally means we do 1 litre of water. And you can weigh your water, it's 1,000 grams, and then we put 60 grams of salt into the water. And we mix it in. This is your wet mixie. Now a lot of brining recipes will tell you have to boil the salt into the water, and that you have to let it cool down and put ice in it and everything. I just find that makes it really complicated and tends to deter people from doing it. Personally, I've never had to boil my water. You just mix it until all the salt's dissolved. The salt diffuses into the meat and it takes with it all kinds of other particles. So it will take water particles in and literally makes your food absorb water, making it moist. It also absorbs other flavour particles. So whenever I'm brining, I always put a little bit of salt in the brine, sugar even. Just a bit of sugar, don't weigh it. And then depending on what you're going to cook, you can add other flavours. So garlic generally goes in. You don't have to crush it or anything, just open it up a little bit so that the flavours can come out. Throw that in. This is going to be our chicken brine, so I'm going to put some rosemary in here, some peppercorns. We're just making chicken sauté with this chicken, so just basic, simple, standard flavours. Keep mixing, it's not quite mixed in yet. But if you're making a curry, you could put cardamom in there, you could put cumin seeds, you could put star anise, some lemon zest. You can really put anything you like in your brine.
Is this my recipe?
Yes, this is your recipe. You're doing this one. The only thing that you don't really want to put in here is something that will change the pH. So you don't want to be putting a lot of lemon juice or vinegar or anything like that. You want to put aromatics in there. The reason being that if you put lemon juice, it will cook the meat and it will change the texture. And it will do all sorts of things.
You don't want it to cook the meat.
No, we don't want to cook the meat. We just want to brine it and make it delicious.
Yeah.
Now, talk about the percentages. A 6% brine is quite a lot of salt. So this is something you'd want to leave for between 4 and 12 hours. It's sort of overnight brine. If you want to leave something in brine for longer, we're in lockdown at the moment, so if you're doing a weekly shop,
Mommy.
you're welcome, baby, and you want your chicken to last a little bit longer, brining has the additional benefit of preserving food. So your chicken or meat will last for an extra couple of days in the fridge if you leave it in brine. And if you want to do that as a preservation method as well as to enhance the flavour
Is it finished yet?
The moisture, nearly, tiny bit here in the corners, you see, then you would do a lighter brine, so a 2 or 3% brine, otherwise it's going to be far too salty and inedible. And if you only have an hour or so, I would still use a brining method because it really does make cooking so much easier and it makes your food so much better. You could do a little bit more, say an 8% brine, and just throw it in for an hour. It really is worth doing. And that's it. The salt is all dissolved, no need to boil, in my humble opinion. And now we just throw the meat in there. So I'm just cleaning this chicken. I don't want to have it into small pieces already, so brine your food more or less whole otherwise the brine will enter too quickly. So that's just cleaned now. You can throw it in, and it just goes in the water. Splashes everywhere. The important thing when you're brining meat like this is that it is fully submerged, because otherwise you're going to have one bit poking out the top, it's going to dry out, and it's not going to be brined, and so you'll have a half brined piece of meat and the rest won't be. So if you find that your meat is floating, you can put a little plate or something on the top that will just weigh it down to make sure it's fully submerged. And the really important thing about this obviously is that it stays cold. So the water should be cold. You can put a couple of ice cubes in there. Again, I think if you haven't boiled it to infuse water with the flavours, you don't have to put ice in it. We just put it in the fridge. So I'm only going to do a 4% brine, so we need 40 grams of salt. Please, sous chef.
So
you put a little bit of wet paper towel, damp paper towel, that will stick this, stop it from swinging around when I'm working.
When you put them in the water.
Yeah.
So
I'm just taking some of the fat off this, because that fat is going to prevent the salt from permeating the meat. Put a bit of sugar in here. Just a little bit. It just makes it a little bit more of a balanced seasoning. You don't have to put sugar in it. You don't like sugar. You don't believe in putting sugar in things. But the other thing to consider is that when you're brining something, it's only absorbing a tiny amount of what goes in here.
Yeah.
So it might seem like a lot of salt or a lot of sugar, but the amount that is actually going to be absorbed into here is minuscule. And with the pork, I'm actually going to use, this is going to be barbecued pork ribs, and I'm going to do in the oven, and I will show you that too. I'm going to put a little bit of liquid smoke in here to make it sort of smoky. And I'm going to put a little bit of Worcester sauce. A little bit of mustard goes in there. I really like putting mustard in brines, it just gives it sort of a bit of a tang. If I'm making chicken escalopes, for example, I'll put quite a lot of mustard in there. It makes the chicken really nice for breading. Is it all mixed up, do you think?
Yeah.
Where's the peppercorns? Alright, so this can go in. You can put in any kind of vessel. It can be a bowl, it can be a tray, it can be anything, as long as it's submerged nicely.
Yeah.
And that, again, just goes in the fridge. And I will leave this overnight, but again, if you wanted to leave it like this for a couple of days and come back to it, you can put just less salt, all the other flavours can stay the same. Our meat has been brining overnight, so now we're going to actually cook with it. And the first thing we need to do is to rinse off this brine. You'll notice that the texture of this meat is a little bit more turgid after it's been brined. That's because it's absorbed all that water and all that salt and all those lovely flavours. So you'll see that the chicken has got some natural fibres going through it, these lines. And what we want is to cut against them, perpendicular to those lines, so that when you take a bite, it naturally breaks apart and it makes it very easy to eat, and it makes it feel softer than it really is. So we're going to cut across the lines to make a long thing like that. Garlic, a couple of spoons of yogurt. Don't need more than that. And not cross-contaminate everything. A little bit of lemon juice. This is the lemon that we zested yesterday, so it's sort of left over. And when you're using lemon juice in any kind of marinade, you mustn't leave it too long, because the lemon, the acid in the lemon, can you set it for me? Thank you. Will
You're making mustard?
So this can stay in there for up to an hour, but no more than that really. It's not something you want to leave overnight, because the outside of your meat will be cooked. Yeah, is it all done? I'm using these bamboo skewers. And I often read in recipes that these need to be soaked in water for an hour. I find that to be completely untrue. They will still burn. I soak them overnight, all day, for as long as possible. They still sometimes burn, but it does help a bit. Thank you, Max. It's beautifully stirred. It does help a bit if they've been soaked in water. So this is also a little bit firmer because it's absorbed all that liquid, and it's going to make it really nice and juicy when it's cooked. And for this, I'm going to pour over some barbecue sauce that we made this morning.
Yeah.
I like to make my own because then you can sort of choose what to put in it. You can make it mustardy or honey or Jack Danielsy or whatever you prefer, and you can sort of choose how sweet you like it, how sour, etc. But also because I find that if you're going to buy barbecue sauce at these quantities, it's really expensive. It's much cheaper to make your own, and I think it tastes better too. Can you put some on here, please, darling? Very good. Excellent. And now we're going to brush it. Can you brush it on for me?
Yeah.
So I'm just putting a little bit of it on now to cook in the oven so that it will absorb some of that sauce. But actually most of it will go on after it's finished in the oven, just to sort of glaze it and it will stick to it. So we're going to put it in the oven for 3 hours and then just grill it for a few minutes afterwards. Beautiful. Okay, now this is the key bit. You take these and you put them on the silver foil and you fold it over. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you have 2 slices of silver foil ready. Then you turn it over and you do the same thing on the other side. So that you've got a seal.
It looks just like a carrot. Oh, it looks just like a carrot.
Yeah, it's all orange, isn't it? And then you've got this nice little parcel that goes in the oven, just like that, 160 degrees for 3 hours. And now we can go back to our chicken, which has been in there for a few minutes. And these very simply just get threaded onto a stick. Because I've cut them into strips, there's just one piece. Just this one piece goes on one stick. Very easy. And then these either get barbecued or they can go under the grill in the oven. Just line a baking sheet with some silver foil and throw these under the grill. Turn them over when they're cooked on the top. And these are really delicious. I often make these for kids at barbecues, and then all the parents end up fighting over them and eating them all. So I always have to make at least double or triple of these. And the rest of the chicken I'm actually going to make into a curry. And just a quick mention, when you're using brined meat for things like a curry or a stew or whatever else, things that sit in the sauce, and that is that some of the salt can come out of it when you're cooking it, especially if you're cooking it for a long time. So you have to be just aware of adjusting the seasoning. So if you're making a curry, don't make the curry sauce first and then put the chicken in, because it will get more salty. So you need to put the chicken in and then taste it for saltiness and overall seasoning, because it will change it a bit. The other thing to mention about when you're brining meat, especially things like chicken, is that obviously it's wet, it's been soaking in liquid. So if you're doing a whole chicken or a whole turkey, then the skin is going to be saturated and it's not going to brown up and crisp nicely. So if you're doing a whole chicken or something with a skin that you want to be nice and crispy, you can do injection brining. And injection brining is exactly what it sounds. You make the brine in a bowl, you suck it up into a syringe, and then you inject it straight into the breasts or the legs or the flesh or whatever. That way you're getting the brine into the bird or other meat, but you're not actually affecting the skin. And that's really good for if you're doing a whole chicken or a whole turkey, things like that. So you don't have to miss out on brining just because you want to have crispy skin. And that is it. These are going to go on the barbecue. That is going to go in the oven. And that's it. That is our brining lesson. Do brine your food. It takes a bit of time, but it's very, very easy, and it makes such a big difference to your meat. It's really worth doing, and it's something that if you get used to it, even after lockdown, as soon as you bring something home from the supermarket, stick it straight in brine, and then keep it in the fridge that way. And it's just 10 minutes of your life, but it makes a really big difference to your food. So today. Should we say goodbye?
Goodbye,
Goodbye.
everyone.